Tuesday, June 17, 2021, and we're tracking record-breaking heat in parts of the country, with some areas climbing well into the triple digits just days before the official start of summer. Also ahead today.
You're extremely tired, and it's only the middle of the day.
2 o'clock in the afternoon, all of a sudden, kind of all systems seem to go on pause. You don't feel like working anymore, you don't feel like doing anything with the kids anymore, and you just want to lay down.
See why Americans are fighting an epidemic of exhaustion and saving America. Actor Kirk Cameron shares his personal insight on our country's future.
I'm banking on the power of God working in their hearts and through their minds.
This is CBN NewsWatch.
And we begin this half hour with record-breaking heat affecting millions of people in the West, with some cities expected to see triple-digit temperatures this week. As George Thomas explained, this heat wave is setting historic records and calls for energy conservation as power plants feel the squeeze on the electric grid.
Sizzling heat wave stretches from Los Angeles to Omaha as meteorologists warn up to 50 million people to prepare for bouts of excessive heat. The massive heat dome sending temperatures soaring to 125 degrees in Death Valley, California on Wednesday evening. The city living up to its name, as record highs this week are expected to flirt with the 134 degrees set back in 1931. Power companies urging residents to scale back energy consumption through Friday.
Start thinking about things that you do that use a lot of electricity that you can move to different parts of the day. So maybe you're running your dishwasher later in the evening or earlier in the day. Same with the washing machine and dryer.
A similar situation in Texas, where the power grid is again under strain following February's deadly winter storm that led to power outages across the state and killed 151 people. With the heat index expected to top 100 degrees this week, grid managers are trying to avoid rolling blackouts again. So they're urging folks to conserve power, especially in the late afternoon between 3 to 7 p.m. Houston resident Paula Than briefly lost power after an electrical equipment failed.
It's frustrating, especially when I'm working from home and I have a dog who needs power. So it's very frustrating.
Salt Lake City setting a record 107 degrees on Tuesday. The National Weather Service saying it was the highest temperature ever set in any month of the year in the last 147 years. At least 8 states from California to Montana are under excessive heat watches right now.
I can't stand it. I'm from the East Coast. This is not for me.
The record-busting heat baking the U.S. Southwest and into parts of Montana and Wyoming, with several cities seeing temperatures climbing near or above 110 degrees. The extreme heat causing at least 28 large fires in 8 western states. This as a large swath of the West faces dangerous drought conditions.
Drought is getting worse week by week.
Temperatures in the West are expected to remain high between now and end of June. George Thomas, CBN News.
President Biden returns to Washington saying he got what he wanted from his summit with Russian President Vladimir Putin. And now that it's over, it's time for the real work to begin. CBN White House correspondent Eric Phillips has more.
What struck me right off the top was the length of this meeting. It was scheduled to take up to 5 hours. Instead, it took less than 3. Both leaders agreed it was efficient, and they say time well spent. From the outset, things appeared awkward as the two presidents sat for this uncomfortable-looking photo op. Still, both say when the cameras were off, the meeting turned substantive and productive. President Biden calling it good and positive, not strident even when they disagreed.
I told President Putin my agenda is not against Russia or anyone else. It's for the American people.
As for the first general appraisal, I think there was no hostility, quite the contrary. The talks were quite constructive.
Important boxes were checked during the summit. The two agreed they would once again welcome each other's ambassadors into their countries. on the idea of a prisoner swap.
There could be some compromise that we enter into between the Russian Foreign Ministry and the U.S. State Department. They will be working on it.
The two apparently gained some ground on the subject of cybersecurity, a key objective especially following recent ransomware attacks on the U.S. linked to criminals in Russia.
We agreed to task experts in both our countries to work on specific understandings about what's off limits and to follow up on specific cases.
Still, Putin projected a tone of denial after the meeting.
We know that there were cyber attacks on a pipeline company in the United States. We are encountering the same threats.
On the issue of human rights, the Russian president seemed most defensive, engaging in a string of whataboutisms where the U.S. is concerned, referencing the January 6th attack on the U.S. Capitol.
Some people died, and one of the people that died, they were simply shot on the spot by the police, although they were not threatening the police with any weapons. In many countries, the same thing happens.
It's not about just going after Russia when they violate human rights. It's about who we are.
In the end, the two men were saying very kind words about each other. Putin saying that he could tell at first glance Biden is very constructive, balanced, and experienced. On whether or not the meeting was ultimately successful, though, President Biden would only say, "We'll find out." Eric Phillips, CBN News.
Democrats are on two different paths for the infrastructure bill, one with Republican support and one without. The White House is giving a bipartisan group of 10 Democratic senators and 11 Republican senators one more week to strike a deal that can pass both chambers of Congress. Senator Susan Collins, one of the 21 senators negotiating the bipartisan plan, says their bill is focused on traditional infrastructure.
Roads, bridges, airports, seaports, waterways, highways, broadband, and I think that makes sense.
The plan would cost $974 billion over 5 years, with a second option being negotiated of $1.2 trillion over 8 years. It would be partly funded by repurposing COVID-19 relief money.
If you look at what has been spent, there literally is hundreds of billions of dollars in the pipeline going back to the initial CARES Act that was passed in March of last year.
If this passes, the Democrats will then try to accomplish the rest of their agenda through a separate reconciliation bill, which only needs 50 votes. The Internal Revenue Service denied tax-exempt status to a Christian nonprofit organization's Christians Engaged. It says they are not eligible for 501c3 status, in part because, quote, Bible teachings are mostly affiliated with the Republican Party and candidates. According to its website, Christians Engaged provides nonpartisan religious and civic education. They're being represented by First Liberty Institute, who has appealed the IRS's decision. You can read more on this story and see a copy of the IRS letter by going to our website. It's cbnnews.com. Coming up, there's new government in Israel, but former mayor of Shiloh, David Rubin, believes one key development could bring down this new establishment. Find out what it is next.
Region's first ROTC graduate student.
I'm Ephraim Graham, and this is Studio 5. Cruise with me as I discover the good things happening in the world of music, sports, television, and movies.
The fact that Ryan Coogler was going to be directing the film, I knew that something special was going to happen.
We'll chat with artists at the forefront of entertainment and explore the connection between popular culture and faith.
I asked my pastor, I said, well, does that mean I'm supposed to be a preacher? He says, well, no, you already have a pulpit.
Wednesday night at 8:30 on the CBN News Channel.
How'd you like to get a redo on your health, on your body, on your arteries, so you could have the energy you had 20 years ago? The great news is you can. I'm Dr. Mike Roizen, chair of the Wellness Institute at the Cleveland Clinic. I've written 4 New York Times bestsellers. But even better than having to read all that, you can listen to this DVD and watch it. Protect your heart? Yes, you can. Here's how.
Go to CBN.com or call 1-800-700-7000 for your free copy of Protect Your Heart. Let the medical experts show you their new discoveries on how to avoid heart disease and even reverse it. Easy steps to uncover the hidden dangers in your medicine cabinet, reduce stress, and get a complete do-over for your health. Call 1-800-700-7000. That's 1-800-700-7000. Or go to CBN.com to claim your free copy of Protect Your Heart.
Israel's new government is less than 1 week old, and already two political parties want the Knesset to reject the coalition. The Likud and Shas parties are requesting separate no-confidence votes. The government coalition, led by Prime Minister Naftali Bennett, is comprised of groups from left and right. But just how long can a government with divergent views and interests hold together? On this week's episode of The Global Lane, the former mayor of Shiloh, David Rubin, says the government may last longer than expected, but one big development could bring it down.
If there is another barrage of 4,000 rocket attacks on Israel, then the government will fall. Why do I say that? Because you have Bennett, who's a right-leaning candidate. In fact, the name of his party is Yamina, which means to the right.
Yeah, right.
And he has in his coalition 41 out of 61 members who are leftists or who are members of the Arab Party. And that Arab Party is a pro-Hamas party. It's an Islamic, vehemently Islamic party. And they support Hamas, they support terrorism. So what happens when 4,000 Hamas rockets start falling on Israel? Bennett will want to respond strongly. The Ram party, that Arab party, will be very, very angry and will be under tremendous pressure to resign from the government. Once they resign from the government, there is no government.
So, David, in your opinion, did those rockets come from Gaza because Hamas was trying to influence post-election politics in Israel, or was it because of a perceived lack of support for Israel on the part of the U.S.?
Well, it's a combination of factors. First of all, let me say this. Hamas doesn't base its rocket attacks on Israeli politics. They did it now because they were getting messages from Washington that it's okay to launch terrorist attacks. True. Joe Biden didn't get on the phone to the Hamas leaders and say, launch terrorist attacks. But Joe Biden restored hundreds of millions of dollars that had been cut off by President Trump from the Palestinians because they were paying terrorists every single month. They were paying salaries to terrorists every single month. And, you know, as a terror victim myself, and, you know, I was wounded in a terrorist attack along with my 3-year-old son who was shot in the head. As terror victims, we know every single month those terrorists were getting salaries. Trump cut that off. Biden restored it unconditionally. And when you restore hundreds of millions of dollars unconditionally, then that tells the message, that sends a very clear message, a green light to do whatever they want. And Hamas did whatever they want. 4,000 rocket attacks. Now, if the rocket attacks are resumed, this government will fall. However, I don't think that they're going to resume the rocket attacks so fast because they're unable to right now. Their stockpile has been depleted somewhat, and they agreed to this ceasefire. They wanted this ceasefire. They asked for this ceasefire because they need to replenish their supplies and they need to restock.
In your new book, you talk about what Americans can learn from Israel. What's the biggest lesson for us to learn?
All right. First of all, in confronting radicals, what America can learn from Israel, I talk about how it's important to learn from Israel's successes, but also mistakes. Okay, we're an ancient nation. Okay, we've been through slavery, persecution, mass slaughter, but also a lot of success, including the return to our ancient country 2,000 years after our exile, and all according to prophecy, by the way. But that did happen, and it's very real, and there's a lot to learn from us, from our successes and from our mistakes. So it's important to understand this central lesson that keys into what we've been speaking about, which is that you do not appease terrorists. You don't appease terrorists by agreeing to a ceasefire when you are on the offensive. You don't appease terrorists when they're trying to bring down your country. And this applies to America as well, and the assaults from the radical left that we've been seeing over the past couple of years in America.
So thousands of years of lessons from Israel. The book is Confronting Radicals, What America Can Learn from Israel. David Rubin, thanks for sharing your insights. We appreciate you.
Thank you, Gary.
And for more following of the important trends in the world, be sure to check out The Global Lane. You can watch it this evening at 8:30 Eastern Standard Time, and you can find it on the CBN News Channel. Still ahead, are you constantly tired? No, you're not alone. In fact, many Americans are dealing with an epidemic of exhaustion. We'll explain when we come back.
Life is better with a good night's sleep. Get your free DVD or booklet of Protect Your Sleep as the world watches from the outside.
It's a big diplomatic tug-of-war here in the Middle East.
Go inside the story with Jerusalem Dateline.
Israeli archaeologists are talking about a discovery that could change the thinking about the Temple Mount.
Join CBN Jerusalem Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell and get the biblical perspective on the events shaping the world.
What starts in Israel then ends up going to other places.
Watch Jerusalem Dateline Friday night at 8:30 on the CBN News Channel.
Life. It's meant to be lived fully. Jesus said it. I came to give you life. Life to the fullest. Life in your family. Life in your finances. Life in your body, mind, and spirit. Life in your everyday. At CBN.com, we're taking what Jesus said seriously. We're here to help you discover life. Life. Live it fully. CBN.com.
Welcome back to CBN NewsWatch. An epidemic of exhaustion. That's what millions of Americans are facing. What is the source of this energy crisis? CBN News medical reporter Lori Johnson explains.
Americans are dealing with a new kind of energy crisis.
Fatigue and tiredness now is an epidemic in this country. Well over 50% of people actually complain of chronic tiredness, and that includes millennials. And that's certainly not our experience in years past.
What's changed? According to Dr. Stephen Gundry, author of The Energy Paradox, What to Do When Your Get Up and Go Has Got Up and Gone, it's all about looking inside ourselves. More people have an unhealthy gut today than in the past, and that's the primary cause of our energy crisis.
2 o'clock in the afternoon, all of a sudden, kind of all systems seem to go on pause. You don't feel like working anymore. You don't feel like doing anything with the kids anymore, and you just want to lay down or reach for an energy bar or get another pick me up, a cup of coffee.
Dr. Gundry says this zaps our energy because of holes that develop in the gut lining.
If you're tired and fatigued, you got leaky gut.
And that leaking causes inflammation, which can drain huge amounts of our precious energy.
Inflammation is actually our white blood cells, our immune system, our foot soldiers, if you will, attacking threats that actually come into our body primarily through the lining of our gut.
The good news is we can repair a leaky gut and reverse other gut issues by consuming lots of different types of good bacteria called probiotics, then feeding those good bacteria lots of fiber-rich foods called prebiotics, causing the bacteria to thrive and multiply. These probiotics can be found in supplements, foods like yogurt and kimchi, and drinks like kombucha. Then it's important to take so-called prebiotics, found in supplements or foods like fresh vegetables. These literally feed the good bacteria, helping it reproduce.
They actually communicate to the energy-producing organelles in all of our cells called the mitochondria to make more energy. So probiotics that you manufacture by eating prebiotics literally turbocharges your energy.
Also, in order to feel energetic during the day, we need a good night's sleep. However, blue light coming from our electronics can keep us from falling asleep. Dr. Gundry recommends turning them off hours before bedtime or using glasses with blue light filters. And another thing to keep in mind, Ephraim, is if you're trying to get a good night's sleep and it's eluding you, stop having any caffeine after noon. Obviously, caffeine is in coffee. Everybody knows that. But a lot of people forget that there's a lot of caffeine in tea and soda, even the clear sodas like Mountain Dew.
Yeah, indeed. So doctors recommend to not overly medicate with over-the-counter medications when it comes to this. What do you mean? But what do they mean by that?
So over-the-counter medications, these are the acid reduction types of medications. We're talking about things like Nexium, Prilosec, Prevacid. These types of drugs are called PPI, proton pump inhibitors. And guess what? Proton pumping is something that gives us energy. This is something that stimulates the mitochondria in our cells. So at the very least, do not take these acid reduction types of medications for longer than 2 weeks. This is actually on the box, but who reads the boxes, right? And a lot of people, even if they do read the instructions on the box, they ignore them. So certainly no more than 2 weeks with those meds.
It's good to know. Now, when we suffer from low energy, what supplements should we be taking?
The top of the list, vitamin D. So many Americans, the majority of Americans, are vitamin D deficient. Vitamin D gives us energy. Now, you can take a vitamin supplement, a vitamin D supplement, and a lot of people do, a lot of people should. 5,000 IUs, 10,000 IUs. If you aren't sure whether you're vitamin D deficient, just go to the doctor, and it's a simple blood test, and they can tell you. Another great way to get vitamin D is from the sun. We have to be careful with getting too much sun exposure. So Dr. Gundry recommends going early in the morning and late in the evening when you're not going to get those harmful rays, but you'll still get the vitamin D benefits.
What food should we be doing or avoiding that will deplete our energy?
The number one food to avoid that's going to make you tired and deplete your energy is sugar. And so this is obviously the one that we reach for first when we're feeling tired. So it's kind of backwards. And go for those things that help the gut. And also intermittent fasting is a great way to boost your energy. If folks, we've talked about this before, start with going 12 hours, 14, 16. The goal is 18 hours a day without food. So for me, I do this every day, and I've really noticed it does give me energy. I cut off my food at 5 p.m. and then I don't eat again until the next morning at 11. It's not as bad as it sounds, but you can ease into it.
Okay, I did 12. I said the goal is 18.
Right, but 12 is a great start. Just try to, keep doing longer and longer each day. A lot of people don't like to start out with 18. It seems a little intimidating. They're like, what? I can't eat at night? But yeah, you get used to it, and it does really boost the energy because what it does is it clears all of the glucose, the sugar out of your blood.
Yeah, indeed. All right, thank you. Good information, Roy. Much appreciated. Stay with us. Kirk Cameron believes America can be saved, but it will take a certain group of people to do it. Find out who they are next.
On October 1st, 1961, history was made when a tiny station began transmitting the first signals of the Christian Broadcasting Network.
CBN, the Christian Broadcasting Network.
And now, a new era has begun with the all-new CBN News Channel.
Just moments ago, the Iron Dome intercepted an incoming rocket right on the Gaza border.
Administering in this area, spiritual warfare is definitely involved.
A 24/7 news network, bringing you the news you want from a source you can trust.
In Kenya, 40% of the medical services are actually provided by these Christian hospitals.
Let's talk about the economy.
Believers here are joining together to win people to Jesus Christ.
All your favorite shows now in one place. Go to CBNNewsChannel.com to find out how to get the CBN News Channel on your TV all day, every day. CBN News. Life is better with a good night's sleep. Get your free DVD or booklet of Protect Your Sleep today.
Life. It's meant to be lived fully. Jesus said it. I came to give you life. Life to the fullest. Life in your family. Life in your finances. Life in your body, mind, and spirit. Life in your everyday. At CBN.com, we're taking what Jesus said seriously. We're here to help you discover life. Life. Live it fully. CBN.com.
Before we wrap this edition of CBN NewsWatch, actor Kirk Cameron has thoughts on Generation Z's saving America.
You talk about young people and always talking about they want cultural change, they want a revolution, and they want to be part of something bigger than themselves. I think that if we give the vision as older, wiser people who understand that ideas have consequences, that history can teach us about where we're headed in the future, that if they get on board with that and they're inspired, if they catch the vision that's rooted in the right stuff, I think that not only, I don't think that it's they who are going to make the difference. I'm banking on the power of God.
Kirk says the young always have more passion to change the world. Time now for your Thursday Thankful. I hope you'll join me in this prayer of gratitude. Father, thank you for your promises. They give me peace when present circumstances don't match God's living word. That prayer reminds me of a song I grew up hearing. Hold to his hand, God's unchanging hand. Build your hope on things eternal and hold to God's unchanging hand. That is going to do it for this edition of CBN NewsWatch. You can always find more of our programs on the CBN News Channel at any time, as well as online at cbnnews.com. You can also reach out and touch us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We'd love to hear from you. Hope you'll join us again right here, same time tomorrow. Make it a thankful Thursday, and we look forward to seeing you again. Bye-bye.